Welcome to the Coach's Edge podcast, dedicated to teaching, sharing, and learning the game. I'm here with Coach Nichols. We're doing something new. We're taking a deep dive into shooting the basketball. This is a full shooting series. So throughout the Coach's Edge podcast, we'll still have other interviews and other topics, but really taking a deep dive into shooting over this next month or so with our YouTube videos, with our podcast. Shooting is something that we've really been building out with our Coach's Edge.coach members, and giving them PDFs, giving them new drills, doing presentations on just trying to all encompass shooting the basketball as much as we can. We've done a ton on shot selection already and how you can teach that to your basketball team. And so with this series, I'm bringing in, our resident shooting guru, Coach Jayden Nichols out of Bowling Green, Ohio. And we're going to meet a handful of times and really try to give you a variety of aspects of shooting the basketball. And our hope is that we're helping all of our listeners, whether you're a coach, whether you're a player, whether you're a parent. There's some things you can take away to improve the people that you're around and the people that you work with. So Coach Nichols, thanks for taking the time, and introduce yourself to our listeners if they haven't had the pleasure of listening to you on the Coach's Edge podcast before.
Yeah, thanks for bringing me on, Steve. Like you said, my name is Jayden Nichols. I grew up in Wisconsin, so I'm a Wisconsin Badger fan. Love the Bucks too. I didn't start playing basketball until I was in the 5th grade, but I immediately fell in love with the game, and I fell deeply in love with the game. And I'm a smaller guy, so I love shooting because shooting gave me a chance. I went into my 7th grade year, just barely made it on the team. 8th grade, learned how to shoot better, became our 6th man. By my freshman year, I was playing JV basketball. Our sophomore year, I was a part of an LL championship team at Bowling Green High School in Ohio, which was awesome. In college, I had a chance to play with the women's basketball program at BGSU. I was a practice player, and there I got even a deeper dive into studying scouting reports. I was a scout player in high school, but it's even deeper once you get to the college level. So I fell in love with the coaching aspect of the game because I got to work with players at the collegiate level. And then right from there, I went into coaching middle school basketball for 5 years. I now coach JV basketball at Bowling Green High School. Just came off our first season, and I've been a trainer with Cramer basketball for about 5 years or so. So I've been working closely with Steve, and I've honestly studied shooting very, very thoroughly. When I was in middle school, there were slight tweaks I made to my shooting every year that incrementally made me a better shooter, to the point where my main role as a varsity player was shooting the basketball. I was a spot up shooter. That was my role. So I've studied a lot. I love still digging into it today, analyzing college players, NBA players, and we work with a lot of elementary, middle, and high school students. And so we've looked at it a lot. I love doing shooting diagnostics. I always say there's about 25 things we can look at in a player's shot. If we can fix 1 or 2 of them, and we're going to make you a better shooter. So that's a little bit about me. I'm super excited to be talking about this for an extended period of time.
Heck yeah, this is going to be a fun series. And shooting the basketball is something that anybody can become a great shooter. God didn't make anybody, you're just born up, you're a great shooter, right? It's worked. It takes time. It takes dedication. It takes sacrifice. And I always have a lot of respect for people that can shoot the basketball, because I don't know, there's only one way that you became a great shooter, right? You put in a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of effort, the mental side of understanding, what you can do to make yourself successful. And compared to some other players might find some success, they're taller, they're stronger, they're more athletic, and they can get by in some of those areas. Those that can shoot it, there's a reason you can shoot the basketball, and I love it. And maybe part of the reason is I grew up in a rural area. When I say rural, we went to a smaller size school, but it was in a field. There was a woods on the other side of my house. I grew up on a dirt road. There was a field on all our property. I didn't have any neighbors, right? And we had a cement slab that was about 15 by 20, and we had the hoop on top of the garage. And it was just day after day, rain, sleet, snow, sun beating down. I was out there. I was shoveling my driveway. After those 15 feet, it was stones. So if I wanted to shoot threes, I had to dribble and everything off the stones and shoot it over from the grass, because that's kind of where the driveway came in. And man, I get some of my best memories just shooting hoops by myself in the yard as a kid. Absolutely loved it, and it paid off. As a college player, I shot over 50% from the field and 40% from 3 for my career. As a player overseas. I shot over 50% from the field and 40% from three for my career. And so to take that and just kind of make it a piece of who I am, and at the same time understanding the things that I've learned along the way that we try to pass on to other people, the things that I've learned after I finished playing, say, man, I wish I would have known that as a player. And one of these is free throws. I didn't say free throws, right? And I had a really up and down career as a free throw shooter. And a big part of that was not because I didn't practice, because I was overthinking some things. There were some times where I changed some of my free throws. Like my sophomore year, I led the whole area on free throw percentage in high school. Every year, my free throw percentage got worse, didn't get better. My shooting got worse. I think my 3-point percentage went up every year. Free throw percentage went down, just because there's some things that we can talk about with free throws that can simplify how you shoot free throws. And a big part of that is getting too revved up. And I want to take deep dive into free throws. So we're going to touch on those areas and many, many more throughout this series of podcast episodes that we have. So Coach Nichols, you mentioned 25 things. We're going to dig into many of those over this podcast series. What are some things that you're most excited about talking about in this shooting podcast series?
I'm really passionate about making sure that we have really good shooting form. So I'm really looking forward to talking about the biology of our bodies and how that plays into how we actually shoot the basketball. Shot selection is a huge one. That's something I had to grow a lot in as a player. And so it's something I'm passionate about teaching players as well. So those are two of the main topics that I love talking about. I always love talking about common shooting errors, so stuff that we do wrong. Like I said, I do shooting diagnostics. So I'm kind of obsessive over what are we doing wrong? What can we do to fix it? How can I help you? I love helping people. That's what I'm passionate about, especially with basketball players. I want you to be better. I work with players across the area. Even though I'm a coach at Bowling Green High School, I still care about Northwest Ohio basketball as a whole. I want our players to be good.
So with that in mind, and you mentioned shot selection, you mentioned evaluating player shots. You work a ton of stuff with my camps throughout the course of the year. I just want to share to our listeners some of the topics of some of the podcasts that we're going to talk about and some of the things that we're going to touch on. We're talking about shooting mechanics. We'll talk about form shooting. As Coach mentioned, we'll talk about shot selection, the common errors of shooting the basketball. We're talking about some off-season workouts, what some of those drills could look like. We'll talk about some in-season shooting drills of what teams and players can do, because it can be hard to get the quantity of shots up that we really need. I think during the season, some of that comes on players just being able to put in the work. We'll talk about free throws, which I mentioned already. Talk about the importance of the guide hand, keeping the basketball straight and balanced. We'll talk about how we can extend power in a player's range. That's a big one for a lot of the players that we work with. They want to start to progress and shoot the basketball from farther away. We'll talk about the shot motion itself, one motion or two motion, and really just talk about shooting the basketball fluidly is really where it hits home for me, instead of saying, okay, this person's a one motion shot, this person's a two motion shot. But we'll just talk about releasing the basketball, how we can do that with fluidity. We'll talk about balance, talk about an elbow positioning, the starting positioning, putting ourselves in a position to be successful even before the basketball has been in our hands. We'll talk about body alignment, gripping the basketball, how we can shoot it and hold the basketball itself. And then we got to get good touch on the basketball. So a lot of that has to do with generating arc on the shot, maintaining the arc with our follow through on the shot. And some of these will be combo episodes that will kind of piggyback on one topic or the other. But as you can see from just hearing that list, hopefully there's a lot of things that we're going to dig into when it comes to shooting the basketball. There's more than one way to do it right. There's even more ways to do it wrong. And so my hope is, as we dive into this series on shooting the basketball, that we can shed some light on numerous areas of the game that can help us be a little more successful. And one of the biggest ones is the mental side of shooting the basketball, the mental emotional aspect, the frame of mind, being in a relaxed state. Talk about some breathing techniques and how players can be successful doing that as well. So as we go through that list, Coach, what are a couple things that really fire you up?
Oh, I'm fired up about shot selection. I love that.
Yeah.
Talking about one versus two motion shots. I think I love looking at that. And even just talking about what kind of foot alignment we use and what kind of shoulder alignment. I love just talking about the really minute, small things that people overlook. So I like diving into those things because I feel like that's where people get the most clarity and they learn the most, is because we talk about stuff that maybe you just haven't thought about before. Maybe something that can really help you out.
Yeah. And that's the hope with this series, is that there's, maybe there's an episode you're like, yep, I got that. I got that. I got that. Oh, there's one box that I haven't checked yet. Maybe that's the difference for you or for your team as far as helping them become better shooters. That's what we're trying to do with this podcast series. So make sure to check out and stay tuned to the Coach's Edge podcast, to our Cramer basketball channel on YouTube, as we'll be coming out with many different topics on shooting the basketball and unrolling them throughout the course of the summer. If you have questions about how we help players, how we help coaches, Coach Nichols is a huge part of Cramer basketball and our camps. We're running those all summer long. So you can hit me up, contact@cramerbasketball.com if you have questions about that. If you're not local to Northwest Ohio, so you can't train with Coach Nichols, if you can't attend one of our camps, we have our Cramer basketball app for players. And then even bigger than that, we have our Coach's Edge membership. We got members from around the country that subscribe to our membership to get access to all of our resources, shooting, program development, strategy. We have monthly meetings where we get together and we talk hoop, talk specific subjects. It could be shot selection, as we've talked about already, and much, much more within the Coach's Edge and coachesedge.coach. So we're fired up. We can't wait. Stay tuned to the Coach's Edge pod and everything that we have in store. And Coach Nichols will be by my side as we help as many coaches as we can. So thanks for checking us out. And as always, get after today.